And we are live. Good morning, Matt. How you doing?
Good morning. Yep, doing all good.
Casey here, everyone from Territory 3, Kiwi Landing Pad Reimagined. And today I'm super stoked to have Matt Weir joining us, the CEO and founder of First Table. Let us know in the chat, everyone, where you're tuning in from, as well as whether you've actually used First Table. It's something my girlfriend actually put me onto a number of years ago, and it's become one of our staples for date night. So I absolutely rate First Table. So super excited to be having this conversation, Matt. Folks, the key things that we're kind of diving into today are Matt's journey, obviously, with First Table, and in particular, also diving into the scaling internationally. So First Table is doing very well in over 50 cities around the world, international team, both, we're just riffing on this now, in-person team in Queenstown is quite a solid core, but then also folks all around the world doing this. So heaps to cover, all sorts of good stuff. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Casey.
One other quick note for the audience, make sure you do ask questions as we go through, and we'll circle around to getting to them. But without further ado, Matt, should we kick into the beginning of the founder story of how you got into the startup scene, which led to First Table?
Yeah, sure. So I started building websites when I was 15. That's always been my jam. And then after uni, I moved to Queenstown and got involved in a web design agency in Queenstown. Bought into that and went really well. But I guess after a little while, got a little bit over the agency life and kind of just wanted to work on my own project and take that from beginning through to fruition and just work on the one thing. I guess when you're working in an agency, it's always churning out stuff and you never get to really go full in on a project and really develop it and optimize it. So basically, I just came up with this idea one day. I saw there's a restaurant in Queenstown a long time ago, a French restaurant, and they used to do this exact thing. Like it was a restaurant across 2 floors. Downstairs, they just had one table, and upstairs was the whole dining room. And it was kind of like a local secret that if you booked the first table of the night at this restaurant, they would give you 50% off the food bill. And their point was to have people in that table on the street level at 6 o'clock every night and use that to attract other diners who they would obviously lead upstairs to the dining room. So that was the inspiration. And I thought, why aren't all restaurants doing this? It's such a great idea to get people into the restaurant at the start of the night. So yeah, that's where the idea came from.
That's so cool, and it rings so true. Like when you are looking for, especially if you're in a city that you're not familiar with, and you're looking for a restaurant to eat at, like one of the most tried and true indicators, right, is are there other people eating there? And then sometimes you'll see. So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, and so you've seen this great concept that's working in an action. You're wanting to build something yourself that you don't have to just churn out, but you can actually kind of breathe passion into it. What did that first kind of pivotation look like?
So first off, I engaged in a local agency in Queenstown to do the design of the website. I told them exactly what I wanted, and then I went to Thailand, interestingly enough, for 6 weeks just to get myself away from all of the action in Queenstown and set myself up in a resort. A cheap resort by the beach, and I'd basically just sit in my room for like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and build the website. So that was a cool experience. It was challenging, but then finished that off and came back to New Zealand, and then the tricky thing was, I'd spent my whole life sitting behind a computer building websites, and I'd never done sales before, so that was kind of a bit of a stumbling block. And I tried to get other people to do it for me, but I just realized at some point that I just needed to suck it up and get out there. So yeah, I just went around Queenstown in the beginning and got the first restaurants on board. To my delight, they all said yes, they're happy to give it a go. The idea, they were like, man, why has anyone not thought of this before? So, they were really open to the concept. It made sense to them to have people in the restaurant at the beginning of the night. And yeah, the MVP, it was basic, and it was an MVP. It was kind of just enough to let people make bookings, but a lot of the stuff I was still processing manually in the background. and restaurants couldn't log in and manage their listing or their availability, and wouldn't have reviews on the website. But it was just kind of a case of, get it out the door, make sure that it works, and then keep adding features as I went.
That's such a common thread as well of like in the early days with the MVP of having something that people can engage with and they can pass critical information to you, but then you manually kind of handle things yourself, because otherwise it could take you months before you're even in a position, especially if it's just you building it, right? Like now you've got a solid team that can help build things out, but like when it's just you trying to do it, such an important thing indeed. Cool. Okay. And so, I mean, this is a double-sided market. You're having to get restaurants on board. You're also having to get customers to know about it, to use it, to book in the first place. How did you approach equalizing that? You've got some restaurants on now. How did you get some users on in the early days?
In the early days, it was a real challenge. And that was kind of like, like every day I'd be like, what should I do today? Should I sign up more diners, or should I sign up more restaurants, or should I build more website features? And yeah, that was a constant struggle at the start. And yeah, I kind of thought that getting the restaurants on board would be the hard part and getting the diners on board would be the easy part. But it was actually kind of the other way around. Like getting restaurants on board, they kind of came on really quickly. It was easy for them. We didn't charge the model means that we don't charge restaurants. It's free for them. And, I just walked around and said, can you give it a go? And they'd say yes. But then actually kind of getting to any critical mass with diners where word of mouth would take over, that was something I probably underestimated. But it was just kind of a case of sticking at it, setting up Facebook ads, and kind of I've used the Facebook API quite a bit to automate the rollout of our ads to different markets rather than manually building them every time.
Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. So Facebook was quite a staple of actually getting out in front of people.
Yeah, that's right. And just little things too, like I'd use the same taxi driver every time, just so I could build up a relationship with him, so he would tell everyone about it. And then same with going to the barber, like the barber would just absolutely tell everyone about First Table. So kind of just those little things at the beginning, doing things that potentially weren't scalable, but kind of actually just seeded it to get it off the ground.
Yeah, that's so cool. And getting that word of mouth of people that there's much a champion for Matt as there is for a champion for First Table. But as time goes on, First Table gets better and better and better. And then naturally they're like, actually, I want to be telling people about this regardless of that.
Yeah, that's right. Eventually you reach that critical mass and it became self-sufficient.
Interesting. So you're starting to kind of get these early pieces. What's the business model for those that aren't aware on the consumer or the booker's side? So it's free for the restaurant.
So basically First Table, we're a restaurant discovery website. We've got 1,400 restaurants on the website and they all offer their first table of the night half price. And restaurants don't pay anything to be on the website. The diners pay $10 to book a table. So they're paying $10 to book a table and then they get the half price on the food bill at the restaurant. And that's our model, that we make the $10. It's an original model. No one was doing that before. But it's got its real advantages, because when I started out, all of the discount websites that were doing deals were, like really commission heavy and really unfair on the restaurants and the operators. It was quite, it wasn't quite working for them. So doing something that was free for restaurants was much more appealing. And then when diners put down that $10, it's kind of like the good thing about it is that they've kind of committed to the table. If they don't turn up, which is an issue in the industry, then they lose their $10. So
interesting. So that is actually a problem in the hospitality industry, where people book tables and just don't show, and they've got no money down. They've just booked it over a website or over the phone, so they've got zero skin in the game.
Yeah, that's right. So it's actually a good part of the model, and that holds people to account.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so you're seeing this. You're talking to folks. They're champions for you. You've got Facebook ads you're starting to put up. You've got some initial restaurants in Queenstown. How did you scale that to, you're now in a team of 24? What was your journey in between?
So at the start, it was just me. And I think we probably got to about 100 restaurants on the platform. When I say me, before I hired our first person, who is Jess, and she's still with us. She joined the team 5 years ago. And she was basically there to kind of help with absolutely everything when I would be out signing up more restaurants. And signing up restaurants, I would kind of go from Queenstown to Auckland to Hamilton and travel around and then come back to Queenstown. And at some point I thought, I've got to keep coming back. I've got to stop coming back to Queenstown because I've just got to be out on the road full time. So I got rid of my house here and then spent 18 months traveling full time around New Zealand and Australia, and would basically live, on friends' couches or Airbnbs or hotels. And it was basically just going from city to city and signing up more restaurants. So all of the kind of the hard yards at the start, but obviously couldn't do that forever. So at some point after the 18 months, I got back to Queenstown and then started recruiting for people to actually do that for me. And that was a big move, actually committing to our first 2 sales reps. And once I brought them on, then they really helped start scaling it up to get a lot more restaurants on board. Yeah. I mean, obviously from there, that was New Zealand, Australia, and then we've done the UK and Ireland and Bali and Canada.
That is such a transition, like with you referencing at the start that like originally you've been like more in the dev world and sales is like the stumbling block that you're probably uncomfortable with because it wasn't the world that you played in. To literally living on the road doing sales day in, day out.
And it was funny when I was up in Auckland for my first time signing up restaurants. I was wearing shorts and a hoodie and a backpack and then walking around restaurants in the viaduct. And I'd walk in and I'd get a bit of a funny look and I'm like, man, I'm not doing this right. So I remember going into the shop and saying, right, if you were to dress me as a salesman, what would you dress me in? And it was quite funny.
That's so good. And now here you are, just your solid beard going on. Did you have the beard back then as well?
No, I had I was in shaved head, shaved face, and I was a different person.
That's phenomenal, man. That's so cool. So if I'm hearing this right, did you bootstrap to where you are, or did you end up taking on capital to?
Initially, I did flirt with the idea of raising capital. I guess like anyone, in the beginning of the journey, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know whether it was going to take off, whether it would work, and work my ass off. And then talking to people about potentially raising and going, well, that's what startups do. So that's kind of what I have to do. And it even took me to Jakarta for a meeting, and I ended up getting stuck there for 6 weeks waiting for another meeting. But in the meantime, I just worked really hard. And then I kind of eventually thought, like revenue's growing and it's kind of working. Maybe I don't need to raise capital. So just kept at that. And raising capital takes up a lot of time. It's a big distraction when there's so many things that were required to be done in the business that I thought, I'm just going to actually just commit to putting my head down and working really hard. And we've basically built the whole thing on cash flow. Really been really lucky that it's been cash flow positive from really early.
Yeah, it's so true that it quite often is the axiom or the logic that people just lean on in the startup is that they have to raise capital. But the reality is that there are so many different pathways. Sometimes it's the right move, sometimes it's totally not.
Absolutely.
The other thing though is like to be in a best position to raise capital in the first place is to have revenue in your startup, because it's kind of helping validate and prove that you're adding value to the market and showing the potential in the first place. So you doubling down on that and getting to the point that you decide you didn't need it, it's really cool to hear that narrative, because it's not as common for that to happen. And I think it's really cool to have the diversity of approaches and success, obviously, as well. So
I'm proud of it. And it's and I feel like for the other startups, for the other founders on this call, like it's kind of good to prove that it's actually possible to do it without it. But also in saying that, we will look to do our first round later on in the year. And that's because we're rolling out a new feature in July that we can't talk about yet. But once that's proven, that's going to provide a lot of traction. And then we want to scale up really quickly. So
couple things I'd love to hit quickly. So you've got this massive kind of growth that's happening from all your hard work that you're putting in. What was last year like for you from a COVID perspective, with everything kind of going into lockdown and first table?
That was really hard. And I guess, talking to the other founders in the room, it's, when it all happened, it was basically, we just had to switch all of the restaurants off in each city as it started happening, and it would happen at different stages around the world. And it was a really tough time because we'd put in, we'd signed up 1,400 restaurants, and then every time a restaurant goes on hold or whatever, we get an email, but we were basically turning off whole cities at a time. So the inbox filled up with 1,400 notifications about restaurants closing.
And not good notifications.
No, yeah. So yeah, that was tough. I went through a period of zero revenue, and I think in the first couple of weeks once it happened, I kind of went into like a bit of a phase of mourning for the business. Like it was like spent 5 or 6 years building this, and then suddenly just overnight it kind of disappeared and had no idea when it was going to come back. But that was tough, and I guess great having government support. I put my own salary on hold, and all of the team went on to 4 days a week. But hey, we managed to, like I said, we had good cash flow. So there was a kind of like a bit of reserves there, and we managed to retain all of our team. And
that's so cool.
And we needed to do that too, though. Like I told the team there were 2 reasons why I wanted to retain everyone. One was because I actually really care about them all. And the other is that in a recession, the first table model actually works really well because diners have less discretionary income. They want to get a deal, and restaurants are not having as many customers in the restaurant, so they're coming to us for help with that. So I'm kind of thinking, it's going to work really well once everything comes right. And we've got an important role to play in helping to rebuild the hospitality industry because we've got the large database and we've got the power to influence people to dine out again with these dining incentives. So kind of wanted to make sure that we had a full team for when everything opens up so we could run really fast. I guess the other challenge too is having our sales reps overseas in the likes of Sydney and London and Vancouver, if we were to lose that team and everything opened up again, but we couldn't travel there to rehire, then we're kind of stuck. So we managed to retain the whole team and really proud of that. And it's put us in a good position for moving forward.
Yeah. Man, that must have been a tough period, but that's so cool hearing that you kind of rode the wave, came through it, and looked at actually, as you said, I didn't think of that piece, that you actually really do help with when restaurants are in a stuck position. They don't have people coming in and trying to open up. I saw a LinkedIn post that you put up in regards to helping locals help locals. What's that about?
Yeah, just so at the start of lockdown, we kind of thought, had to think about what was going to happen after lockdown, and obviously it was going to kind of shift into the level 3 scenario where restaurants would have to switch from doing in-restaurant dining to delivery and takeaway. So we came up with a kind of like a social project called First Eats, kind of just a play on the First Table name, and basically a free directory for all of the restaurants to list who was open and who was doing takeaway and delivery, just to really help out the industry. I know myself, when things opened up, that you kind of didn't really know where to go and who was open, who was doing what. And all of these restaurants that used to do dine-in were having to switch to takeaway models, but then they were actually having trouble actually communicating that to everyone. So we really helped out with that. And then we did a Hospo Lifeline competition through it as well. And I think we had about $30,000 worth of prizes to give out to hospitality operators.
Cool. All right, we'll park the COVID stuff there, and just so stoked that you're able to kind of push through that in an industry that was struggling, still is struggling, but you're kind of at the forefront of helping lead that in a good direction. From a scaling perspective, what did that look like when you're building out this team? You've been on the road for your 18 plus months and traveling, and you're getting some solid revenue behind you, but now you're thinking, actually, and looking at Australia as well, you're thinking, I need to really start building this out more. How did you approach building the team around that? And how did you approach the markets you chose? Maybe if we start with the team.
Sure. So the team, really opportunistically, really. It was the sales team that I really needed to build out first. And that's the people that live in the cities where we operate and who sign up restaurants. So that was a case of, going to Sydney and training up a friend who used to live in Queenstown to sign up restaurants there. Likewise, getting over to the UK and training people there, and then Vancouver and Bali as well. And And then because I'm a developer by trade as well, it really helps with building up the back-end systems to make sure that everything is streamlined and automated. We use Hubspot as the CRM to manage all of that stuff, and got a lot of automation there.
HubSpot's definitely a good choice. What sort of developer? What's your stack?
I built everything in Silverstripe initially, and that's
cool.
open source New Zealand based CMS. That's right. But behind the CMS is an ORM, which is the object relation mapping. So you can actually build complete platforms out of it, and that's something that I had a lot of experience with. So yeah, it seems like a bit of a. I don't know if we would choose it today because things have come a long way since back in the day when I selected Silverstripe, but we've kind of converted it all to a GraphQL backend and then using React on the front end. So it's completely separated. The Silverstripe does its stuff in the background, and yeah, all the front ends in React.
Yeah, cool. Always fascinating. I've recently been jumping into the dev world myself and learning React. So it's definitely a learning curve, but I'm loving it. Okay, so coming back to the so you're building the sales team and making sure they're getting the right training. You're streamlining the back end process as well. You've hooked up HubSpot. How did you choose your markets?
So the markets basically not with any kind of great deal of diligence. It was kind of just, Australia across the ditch. So that's easy for me to go to, and I just traveled from city to city and sign up restaurants. And then the UK came about. That was quite an interesting one. It's a good story. There was, being based in Queenstown, we get a lot of people traveling through Queenstown from all over the world. So there was a couple from Bristol in the UK who traveled through Queenstown. They liked the idea, and then they thought they'd go home and set up First Table in Bristol in the UK. And we'd heard about it, and I talked to the staff about it. They were really angry about it, that someone would see what we're doing and copy it and take it home. And I thought, well, there's kind of nothing stopping anyone from doing this, and good on them. But I said to the staff, what should we do? And they said, well, can we go to the lawyer or something like that? And I'm like, I don't think that's going to help. I was like, why don't I just go there and set up First Table in the same city, and we just go and compete with them head to head? It's gonna happen again. And this is kind of just a good test case to seeing how well we would respond to someone trying to copy us. So the team were like, yep, go for it. So I booked my flights the next day, and the week after that, I jumped on a plane, and it was in January, and I rolled up in London in shorts and t-shirt, and it was bloody cold. But got the bus down to Bristol, and I got put in touch with a lad called Elliot, who's on our team now. And basically I went around all the restaurants in Bristol with Elliot, and we would kind of watch what this other company was doing on Facebook, and they'd sign up a restaurant, and then we'd go, right, let's go sign up that restaurant too. And yeah, we managed to sign up a load of restaurants, and then we were keeping an eye on what they were doing, and they were like, right, we're going live on this date. And we're like, damn, all right, we have to beat them to it. So we managed to launch one day before these guys did in Bristol, when we kind of had no presence in the UK at all. And it was an exciting time. It was really challenging, and it put us under pressure, but we really performed well under pressure, and it got us into the UK when we kind of UK was on the radar, but there was kind of no urgency, and then suddenly there was this urgency created. So yeah, we managed to do it, and from there we've launched in London and Cardiff and Edinburgh and Glasgow and Dublin and Belfast and everywhere. So it was great to get us started.
You always had like a strong competitive spirit?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You always have?
So yeah, that's right. Yeah. So then, yeah, I guess selecting markets. At the moment, we're primarily focusing on English-speaking markets because the whole system's in English, and all the support that we provide is in English. But eventually, we're working on making the website translatable at the moment, and then we will probably move into the east coast of Canada and have the website bilingual, and that'll be kind of the first step to selecting markets that aren't primarily English speaking.
I've got a few contacts throughout Canada, so after this we should touch base and see if I can be helpful on that side. We've got a question that's come through, Matt, which is, could you please talk more about the HubSpot automations you've found valuable and useful?
Sure. I'm not head of HubSpot, but I do know that we use sequences as part of the process of getting of when we're going outbound to restaurants. But I've done a little bit of work with integrating our system with HubSpot. So our system kind of has all the restaurants loaded up and set up in it. So we would say, right, this restaurant's going live on Friday, and would schedule that in, and we've got that linked up to HubSpot. So kind of that information pulls through. The sales team use HubSpot as their way to kind of manage all of their stuff. So they would, one thing that they do is they have like a restaurant setup notes, a field that they will fill in and go like any notes from the restaurant about setting up this restaurant in our platform, and then another field for marketing notes. So the marketing team knows anything special about this restaurant that they want promoted in the promotional material. And then I use the API to pull that information through into our system. So then the customer support team, the restaurant support team they know what they're doing, and the marketing team knows what they're doing. So it's pretty cool and easy to use the API.
And so there's really a big piece there, and just having clear delineation of how you separate useful information for whoever's going to be using it. From an API perspective, do you know if you use like just your default HubSpot, or did you use something like Zapier to bridge that across?
No, I just used the original HubSpot API.
So for the folk that's asked the question, anonymous for the name, there is plenty of guides and stuff out there. So HubSpot is a really, really solid choice. So definitely worth kind of checking that out. And if you run into any troubles, drop me a line. I'd be happy to jump on a call on that side of things too. Folks, if you've got any other questions, do ask them, and I'm sure Matt will be happy to kind of dive into the details on that sort of thing. Matt, coming back to scaling, what was a big challenge that you ran into that you didn't see coming?
Time zones are a big challenge. Even in building the website, that was quite challenging. The other things, I guess, being in those markets, when I traveled to Australia and the UK with a Kiwi accent, I kind of felt like I had like a bit of an imposter syndrome, like, and I'm like, am I welcome here to kind of start up this business? And that was kind of tricky to deal with at the start. But I guess once we got to the scale where the brand was well known, then it was actually a lot easier. And then the other thing is big cities were a challenge in the beginning. So Auckland, as an example, when I started out, Queenstown started going really well, Christchurch started going really well, and then Auckland just kind of languished, and bookings were really flat and didn't get any traction. And I was really worried at the start that we wouldn't be able to crack a big city. And the reason I think big cities are harder is that you've got a far larger population, which means it's harder to reach critical mass with. It's more expensive and it takes longer. And the other challenge with big cities is that, we're selling the first table of the night, but if there's a lot of traffic, then it's quite difficult to get to the restaurant at the beginning of the night. So that's another challenge we had to deal with too. But I guess just kept at it, and then committed more budget to marketing. And then eventually Auckland really took off, and now Auckland's our most successful market. So that was really good feeling once we'd cracked a big city. And then that kind of gave us the confidence to go, right, because at the start we used to just do small cities because they were easier to kind of reach that critical mass. But big cities, that's where the volume is, and they're a lot more self-sustaining than the small cities, which require a lot more work. So it was great to get that in Auckland, and that gave us the confidence to go into the big cities like Sydney and London and Vancouver.
And how did your tactics change from, obviously in the beginning you're kind of word of mouth and Facebook ads, and you focused on the small cities. When you really started to notice a difference and get the pickup in Auckland, were there any change of tactics that you felt worked? Are you still kind of primarily running like Facebook ads and that sort of thing?
Yeah, primarily Facebook ads, but I guess just doubling down or narrowing in on customer acquisition. So actually getting people to create accounts on First Table, and then using that as a optimization goal in Facebook ads to say, yeah, we want to pay per registration. That's what we're optimizing for. And then just working on the ads and getting the acquisition costs down. So when we launch in a new city, we can get it down as low as 70 cents per person creating an account on the website. Then in more mature cities, it's somewhere around $2.50 to $3 per person. And yeah, just focusing on that, getting people creating accounts would build up our audience, and we send a couple of million emails per week. So, that was kind of building up that database of emails. So we're not, I guess we wanted to shift away from spending all of our money on marketing, on paid for digital advertising, and kind of building up our own audience where we could email them for free.
What platform are you using to send out all those emails?
It's a proprietary system that we built internally, but it's using the AWS's simple email service, SES.
Cool. And is that primarily because something like MailChimp, once you start to scale, that gets horrendously expensive?
Yeah, it's expensive, but also it's quite manual and clunky. So the benefit of what I've done with ours is that say we send out, tomorrow we've got a restaurant going live in Auckland, then we create a newsletter for it. But for the most part, it actually generates the newsletter based on all of the content in the website anyway. So it grabs like the photo from the restaurant automatically. We just go, yep, this restaurant tomorrow, grabs the photo, grabs the content, which we just shorten a little bit, puts in the link, and then it grabs the last 10 restaurants that have signed up and it puts them in, and then it shows like a list of the cities that we operate in. So that's completely, when we're launching, we can do like 20 or 30 restaurant launches a week. So if we had to manually put those into MailChimp every time, it would.
Yeah. Okay, that makes
but there are problems in using our own system. It's not all smooth sailing.
No, I can imagine it would have been.
I think it takes about 4 hours for it to send to Auckland. So I think we've got to send over in one go to Auckland. It would send over 60,000 emails, and it takes over 4 hours to actually queue it. And so that's something we need to solve at some point.
Yeah. We've got a cheeky question that's come through on when did you start wearing more formal clothes versus hoodies and shorts?
That was when, like I said, in Auckland. It was funny because, I went to this restaurant and then I went to the shop. The shop I went to was working style. My mate told me to go there, and I walked in and I'm like, right, what would you dress me in if I was, if you're going to dress me as a salesman? And he goes, right, this, and this. And I'm like, cool, how much is that? And he goes, $1,400. And I'm like, man, I only just started. Like, I can't afford that. He goes, all right, go down the road to Barker's. They've got like a pop-up sales store, and they'll set you up. And then once you're making money, come back and we'll sort you out. So it was quite cool, actually, like 3 years later, when I was like, yeah, all right, I'm making enough money now. I can go see that guy at Working Style. And it's quite a good thing to go back to him with.
Yeah, that's so quirky. That's cool. What would you say throughout your journey, Matt, has gone surprisingly well, better than anticipated?
I guess the model that I came up with on day one, like the 50% off for 2, 3, or 4 people, 50% off the food bill only, and people pay $10 to get it. What's been surprising is that has stayed consistent the whole time. We haven't had to tweak that. It's the exact same thing today as it was when we began. And the other thing is too, when I started in Queenstown, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to work in Queenstown, and then potentially in the rest of the country, and then we'd kind of have to go and test it in other markets to see whether it works. So I guess what's surprising is that it's actually working everywhere in the world too. North America is a bit more of a challenge because they got tipping, and that complicates things.
Interesting. What's been your response to the challenge of tipping? Do you have a response to it?
So I guess we launched in Vancouver because that was kind of a stepping ground into the United States, North America, kind of a good test market for us to work out if there are any issues. And tipping's come up as one. And the thing is, the waiters want to earn tips on the original amount, not the discounted amount. So that makes it quite complicated because, you're offering 50% off the food bill, and then you kind of think, well, maybe as a Kiwi, we look at it and go, yeah, the tip is relative to what we spent, but the waiters actually want the tip on the original amount, not the discounted amount. So, and it's really important that we support waiters, and waiters are enthusiastic about it. They're actually the ones that typically they're early adopters of First Table in new cities, and they've got a lot of sway in the restaurant as well. So we need to look after them. So it's kind of a case of just trying to educate people when they make a First Table booking in North America, is that to be aware that they would be expected to tip on the original amount.
Okay. And have you found that education piece has been somewhat natural for people? Because I suppose in North America was tipping such a normal thing, right? Like that's in the back of your head every time they buy something, whereas like in New Zealand, it's like not. Have you found that the education piece has been going well?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of still a case by case, but any kind of locals, I think that makes sense to them. And then I guess at the moment, we've only got locals dining in that market anyway, but it's just a case when we have tourists there and Kiwis are going to travel to Canada again, that we need to make sure that people are aware of what's expected.
Flip side question.
Yep.
What would you avoid if you did this all again?
I guess one of the things that I put a bit of work into that didn't really work out was when I was traveling around full time and I'd been setting up Brisbane, I had a couple of people contact me in Melbourne who said, you know, like I'd like to bring First Table to Melbourne, and they already had jobs, and I'm like, cool, all right, well, if you've already got a job, that might work quite well, and I'll just I can pay you per restaurant you sign up. So I went down to Melbourne and I spent quite a bit of time going around restaurants with these two people and training them up on how to sign up restaurants, and it was going really well, and we're having fun, and they were making some money out of it. It's always challenging signing up restaurants. There's a lot of time walking the street and going in for meetings, and like any sales job, people say no, so you've got to deal with that and handle objections. But you know, I thought it was going really well, but then when I left Melbourne, they kind of just dropped off the radar, you know, like they just kind of found it too hard and there wasn't enough in it for them, and so that was kind of a waste. You know, I spent all that time training them, and then we launched Melbourne with not the ideal number or caliber of restaurants, and that kind of meant that Melbourne was off on the wrong foot, and then I had no one there to look after it. And Melbourne's a big city, and a foodie city too. So
yeah, absolutely a foodie city.
Yeah, so that was quite tough, and I guess the lesson learned there was that, you know, you can't really rely on people that are on just commission only, especially if they've already got another job. And it was after that I actually committed to hiring our first 2 full-time sales reps.
Interesting.
And things went a lot better from doing that.
Yeah. Matt, that kind of opens up another conversation that we were riffing on before we went live, which was you've got a good chunk of your team in Queenstown, your core team, but of course you've got team members all around the world. On that note, how do you handle the cultural elements of being a united forefront, even though you're not necessarily in the same location?
Yeah, sure. So in Queenstown, we've got head office, and we've got a team of 10 in that office, and it's quite a close-knit team. And then in Manila, we've got our customer support and developer team, and then the rest of the team is the sales team in Auckland, Sydney, Vancouver, London, Bristol. And I guess what's really helped with culture is I brought on a general manager a year ago, which was kind of a big step, something I didn't really know about. I guess I've never really worked in a company that's as big as the company we've got now, so I didn't really know much about management or managing people. But he's really made a big difference about embedding the cultural values in the company. So, and I guess head office kind of leads it up. We've got our set of values that we've kind of developed ourselves, and we do performance reviews that revolve around the values. And with head office being a tight-knit team, then we kind of head up how the values are supposed to be lived by, and then that filters through to the rest of the team internationally, and we kind of keep reminding the international team about it. And then I guess globally, each department have their own weekly meetings, and then we also have a whole company global meeting on Tuesday mornings that everyone's on and has a chance to get together. And a lot of the team do have a nice Queenstown connection too, you know, like a lot of the team that work overseas have lived in Queenstown or visited Queenstown before.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense. love the value piece, and particularly like as you say, like actually trying to live by them and breathe them. What are there any examples you can kind of give? I love that side of things because it's like it's sometimes what you'll see is there'll be like the values that your company and startup the folks who'll put a whole lot of work into, but then they just live on the wall or in a document and they don't actually translate into like the whole purpose of the values, right? It's like the way we live every day, the way we handle ourselves in different situations, the way we make decisions. What's that look like from a tactical perspective? I love that you kind of you make that transition.
Yeah, so one of our values is win-win, and that comes from the original model in itself. That First Table is great for not just for diners who are getting a discount, but for restaurants too, who know the value of having people in the restaurant at the beginning of the night. So a win-win, that's really important to us, but that kind of goes further than just those relationships. It's everything in the company about how the company treats its staff and how the staff treats its company, and then likewise staff treating each other and customers and all of that. So that's a big one that we live by. And I guess reiterating those values, that comes through the performance reviews, and the performance reviews aren't kind of, yeah, you did good work. It's more than that. It's like, talk us through how you've lived by the examples, by the values, and then we kind of go through any work-ons with the values as well. So that's really holding people to account.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. That's deep when you actually unpack different scenarios, and it would really get your teams off thinking about actually authentically how am I stacking up to these values, and how can I in the now but also going forward maintain close to that. That's
it's a good thing to do is to for a company, and I guess like all of us that have startups, we don't necessarily know how to do all of this stuff off the bat, right? It's not like there's a book that you pick up and it tells you what to do, but I guess this is a good example for everyone about how, if the values are important to you, how you can actually bring them into everyone's daily lives.
The other thing I love about that is you've got this closed feedback loop where there might be a team member you've got that's like truly encompassing some cool ways of like applying the values, and then they share it back to you, and you might be like, shit, that's actually really cool. This should be like, we should all be doing this.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Cool. Just we're kind of getting close to the end of some of the dialogue we wanted to cover, but keen to get your thoughts on what do you see the trends in the hospitality space over the next wee while, particularly around New Zealand. Obviously, it's been smashed, but then at the same time, there's many good players like yourself that are trying to like really ramp it up, and we're in a fortunate position. But what are the trends you're seeing?
I think restaurants are getting a whole lot smarter with all of their marketing. Like all of the restaurants, what you're seeing online is they're getting really good at it, which is really cool to see. We're in the restaurant booking system space, and a trend we're seeing there is that a lot of booking systems are getting acquired by big places, by big companies for strategic purposes. And an example of that is probably the original one, Booking.com bought OpenTable a good few years ago, but they bought it for $2.7 billion. And more recently, Squarespace just bought Tock, Amex bought Resi, and Accor bought ResDiary. So that's quite exciting for us, because we're seeing that these big companies are buying the restaurant booking systems for strategic reasons, to get access to all of these restaurant clients. And that's exciting because we're building value in a space that's obviously in demand.
For sure. That is quite interesting. That's quite a few acquisitions. I have to check out some of them. Some of those names I'm familiar with. But I guess
a lot of them are American, but American or British.
Do you have plans to really push harder and heavier into America than we currently have?
Yeah, that's right. Like that was the plan pre-COVID, was get that foothold in Vancouver and then scale out from there. But I guess in the short to medium term is that scaling geographically is going to be a challenge. So rather than focusing on that, we're kind of focusing on the product and focusing on the markets that we're in and kind of building those out. And then, got a few really exciting things that we've been working on that we're looking forward to release this year, which kind of help build a lot of traction.
On that release, what sort of timeframes can we anticipate hearing more about this?
Hopefully mid-year. Yep. It's kind of, we've got all departments working on it. Yeah.
Cool. Stay tuned. We'll definitely stay tuned.
I don't want to
on
commit to any dates, but hoping.
No, that's good. So tentatively aiming for mid-year, but nonetheless, something exciting coming to watch the space on. If I took one habit out of your life, what would have the biggest impact on your performance?
Yeah, that's quite a tough one. But I guess when I started out, I ended up suffering from decision fatigue quite a bit. You know, like as a startup founder, there's no one there to tell you what to do. And you're often working in a space that you're doing stuff that no one's ever done before. So you're kind of working it out as you go. And then even that stuff at, like, you know, at the start, like battling, like, do I sign up more restaurants or more diners, or do I do more development? Do I build more features or automations? So that was quite tricky. But then eventually started growing the team, and that helped. But then I got to a point where I was, I had hired so many people that things were beginning to become harder again. You know, like managing all these people. I'm like, why can't I get any work done? You know, like I've got all these people, but it's just slowing things down. More people and slower production. So that was frustrating. But I guess like I hadn't worked in a company this size before, and I didn't really know what a general manager was, but I think that was kind of a big move, was a year ago bringing on a general manager, and that really helped with you know, someone people focused who could support the team and grow the team. Each department now, we've got department leaders, and the general managers played a big role in helping bring those people up to speed and management and looking after people, and that's really alleviated a lot of stuff from me. So I think that's probably had the biggest impact on my performance, is bringing a GM on board and freeing myself up to work on the big stuff.
Interesting. And how big was the team a year ago when you hired the GM?
I think we had 22 on the team a year ago.
Cool. Okay. And so
he was hired during COVID as well, so that was kind of a big move. But you know, just wanted to do it and commit to continuing to build the company rather than just trying to save during COVID.
And that kind of reclaimed time, if I play that back to, if I understand it correctly, that reclaimed time by bringing someone on that can give the attention that the team deserve and need to do the best work that they need to do. That reclaimed time, how did you then prioritize that into First Table?
So the general manager's, he looks after the sales and marketing and customer support teams, and that freed me up to look after the dev team. We've got 5 developers in the company now, so then I can work a lot more on product and the product development, and that's kind of how we've been able to accelerate this stuff that we're working towards releasing mid-year.
Hence this release. Gotcha. Like, you've actually got more capacity now. You can help. You can continue like dreaming up the future of wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Imagine this was better, and all these sorts of things, that rather than just working in the business, you're back to be able to work on the business.
Absolutely. Yep. That's it.
Cool, man. Any calls of action to the audience? One first thing that I would say before we jump in, Matt, would be if you haven't used First Table, you need to use First Table. I genuinely have been using it for quite some time before meeting and getting to know you, Matt. And I definitely rate it, so give it a nudge. But other than that, Matt, is there any calls of action, or maybe you want to hammer that one home too?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't given First Table a go, if you don't know about it, then make sure you sign up, and yeah, you'll love it. We are hiring a senior UX designer at the moment, so if anyone knows someone that they could put in touch with us, we've had a couple of good interviews already, but obviously always on the lookout for more applicants, and it would be a Queenstown-based role, but the people that have been applying have been, I guess, Auckland-based at the moment, but quite keen to be based in Queenstown. So obviously suits an outdoorsy person who likes the lifestyle here, and it is an awesome place to live. And
the beautiful scenery that we can see part of, some behind your shoulder.
Yeah, the camera around and oops.
Oh, look at this.
It's the lake out there, so yeah.
Yeah, that's stunning. Cool. Okay, so hiring opportunities. So whether someone on the call that might be suited for you, but even if you know someone, be worth sharing that. Matt, just as we look to wrap up, some next things in your journey. Obviously, you've got the launch coming up. Are there any other things on the roadmap in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I guess fully focused on launching the new feature, and that's kind of like a critical stepping path or point to the capital raise too. So once we've launched that and proven what it is and how it works and how it helps the business, helps us scale, then looking to raise capital so we can really hit the gas.
Cool. And final question, any final thoughts for founders listening?
Yeah, I guess going back to the start is my advice is that you don't have to raise capital. So you can get distracted by that. And like, maybe if you did raise capital, that gives you a lot of money to build out your product or whatever, but you still need to get product market fit. You still need to build a culture in your company, and you still need to work really hard. So just because you raise capital, it doesn't solve those things. So really need to just remember that solving capital, I know it's really celebrated, that if that's a big success in itself, but there's a lot to it, a lot more to it than just getting that money. There's still all those fundamentals that you need to build in your business.
Would it be fair to say, Matt, like framing that up, like if you were to raise money as a startup, like then what would you do with the money anyway? And are some of those things that you could actually be working on now even before you raise the money?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and product market fit's a really big one right before making sure you get that right, and that kind of would give anyone that wants to invest confidence anyway.
Cool. Matt, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for sharing it with the founders listening, and look forward to hopefully meeting you in person at some point in Queenstown.
Yep, for sure. Welcome to visit anytime, Casey. Thank you.
Cheers, Matt. Take care, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, everyone.